When you're talking about watches, the term affordable means different things to different people. Today we're going to take a look at a watch that comes in well under $100 and has very good looks inspired by Gerald Genta. It comes in two different sizes and it has a metallic dial with a texture. It's a quartz dress watch. However, I think it looks a lot more expensive than its price tag. So let's flip the camera and take a look at a brand called Revelot and their new universal dress watch in 40 and 36 millimeters. And here are the watches. I have both the 40 millimeter and the 36 millimeter version to show you guys. They do wear a little bit bigger than their dimensions, or at least they look a little bit bigger than their dimensions. And I'll show you this watch on my wrist. I have a 7.5 inch wrist for you to be able to gauge how these will wear on your wrist. These are affordable. These come in at $89. So if you want the pair, it's $178. If you want the 36 or the 40 millimeter, it's $89. And these have a pretty cool inspiration. The inspiration from these watches come from Universal Geneva. So the name of the watch is Universal. It says it right above the date, right above the 6 o'clock position. And that is because it is inspired by the Universal Geneva pole router. That was a watch that was actually designed by Gerald Genta. It had a micro rotor, a really awesome watch and actually pretty collectible. This looks somewhat like that watch. I wouldn't say it's a direct homage to that watch. This is more in line with the size of that original vintage Universal Geneva. Obviously, this is much larger than that watch would have come in. These are quartz, so they're powered by an Epson movement, and of course, you do not get a second hand. I think that is a really good move because obviously it is a quartz movement. You don't need to see that ticking second hand. It actually works really well. I think some people will not like that because they want to time things to the second, or they want to set their clock, to the actual second. However, without a second hand, obviously that will not work. The dial setups here are really nice, and they make these in a few different colors. This one is sort of a bluish silver color, but they make a salmon color or a copper color that is gorgeous, and a blue, and there's some contrasting indices and hands that look really, really good on those watches. This is a little bit different approach on these dials, but I do like these as well. It's sort of a baby blue color. You have two layers, you have applied indices, and the top layer is sort of the hour and minute track that's sitting on top of a textured portion. Now, it's sort of a hobnail pattern, and then you have a really nice bespoke set of hands. They're really, really nice, and those are lume. So you do get lume on this watch, and even though it's a dress watch and it only costs $89, that is really good. Thin cases, sapphire crystals that are domed, so you get a domed sapphire crystal on here, and of course stainless steel cases. You have leather straps on here that are actually pretty nice. This is sort of a brown reddish colored leather strap on here. It's a cav leather. And then you have a really nice buckle. It's not a press buckle. It's not off the shelf. You flip it over and it's actually signed with the Revelot logo right there. It just says Revelot. The dials are simple as I mentioned. It just says the name of the brand right below the 12 o'clock. Their little logo is there as well. And then it says Universal, then the date, and that's all above the 6 o'clock position. Small crown on here, unsigned, but other than that, really, really nice design. I could have done without the date. I always say that. I'm not a huge fan of the date, but let's quickly do measurements. This is the 40 millimeter version. I'm going to measure it at the bezel. So that comes in at basically 40 millimeters, so 40.4. Thickness on here is a very thin 8.3 millimeters, and then the crown, I believe the crown is the same size whether or not you're getting the smaller or larger case, so 4.9 millimeters. So that is a little bit on the smaller side, obviously, for the 40 millimeter case, but for the 36 millimeter case, that actually works pretty well. 45.7 millimeters lug to lug. That is the 40 millimeter version. Let's take a look at the 36 millimeter version. So this comes in at around 35.5 millimeters. So 35.4 millimeters. So under 36 millimeters, obviously. And then the thickness is just about the same as the other watch, so 8.2 millimeters. It might be just where I'm grabbing it. I would imagine it's 8.2 or 8.3. And then you have a 4.9 millimeter, 4.8 millimeter crown on this one. And then the lug to lug, which is obviously much shorter on this watch because it is a smaller watch than the other, 39.8. So with that being said, I still think this does wear larger than its dimensions. It probably wears bigger than a 36 millimeter watch, even though its dimensions are around 35.5 millimeters. Very quickly, I will throw both of these watches on my wrist. Today on my wrist, I have my vintage 50 Fathoms. This is the Aqualung. I'm wearing this because obviously Swatch just recently released information about a collaboration with Blancpain, and I believe that this is the route that they're going to be going in with the 50 Fathoms, but that is yet to be seen as of the time that I am actually filming this video. Anyway, guys, let's throw the Universal on my 7.5 inch wrist. There's the 40 millimeter version on my 7.5 inch wrist. Obviously, this does wear larger than 40 millimeters. I would say this wears like a 41 millimeter. It is very thin to the wrist. Look at that. It really is snug to the wrist. And it looks really good. That dome sapphire crystal is slightly raised from the case. Even though that is raised from the case, it is still very thin because you do have a quartz movement inside. And there's the 36 millimeter version on my 7.5 inch wrist. I have to say, this wears really close to maybe a 36 or 37 millimeter watch, even though it measures under 36 millimeters, because you have so much surface area for that dial, a very thin bezel. It wears and looks larger than its actual dimensions. So definitely keep that in mind if you are looking to buy one of these. I would go with the 36 millimeter version if you have a wrist around my size or smaller and you're looking for a watch that doesn't look oversized, in my opinion. Well, there you go. There's a little bit of lume on the hands, obviously nowhere else. This is a dress watch and it does only cost $89. It is Super Luminova, so it's actually kind of bright and it does last a pretty good amount of time. I really like the hands on this watch. I think they did a great job executing this watch for this price. Obviously, it is a quartz movement, but the lack of a second hand does help with that. Overall, it looks more expensive than it actually is. $89 is a fantastic price. So if you are interested in this, definitely check out their website. I believe these are up on Kickstarter right now. And I would imagine they are very, very popular, especially considering the price and the design inspiration here. It is very cool. Tell me what you guys think down in the comments below. I want to hear from you guys. Please also don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell icon. It's super helpful for the channel and I very much appreciate it. Anyway, guys, thank you for logging on. I will catch you in the next video.